And kind of tagging on what we talked about on Monday,
I'll make my own decisions. What a stupid thing to say. Lord, I need you every day.
we're going to go back to my archaeological Bible and look at some more notes from Proverbs. This one is a note on Proverbs 8. Let me read it to you. Ma'at and Lady Wisdom. Proverbs 8. In ancient Egypt, Ma'at was the abstract principle of truth, order, justice, and harmony, as well as the name of a goddess who personified those virtues. Kings were enjoined to practice Ma'at in order to ensure a long reign. See Proverbs 8, 15, and 16. When Ma'at held sway in the land, Egyptians believed the Nile flooded properly to ensure good crops. There was justice for all, and the classes of society coexisted in harmony. When Ma'at was ignored, the land fell into chaos, crime, and ruin. Some funerary paintings depict a balanced scale, on one side of which is placed the heart of a recently deceased man, and on the other side a feather, representing Ma'at. I happen to love the Egyptian culture. My grandma worked at National Geographic for 30 years when I was younger. Obviously, when I was younger. I'm an old lady. Okay, stop it. And we used to get free National Geographic magazines, and I ate them up. Amongst my favorites were the ones on Egypt. There was a whole one done on King Tut, actually. Anyhow, I'm sure that if you know anything about ancient Egyptian culture, you've seen those depictions with the scale with the heart on one side and then Ma'at, the feather, on the other side. I find it absolutely fascinating, this article that we're reading. I digress. So, if the balance is in equilibrium, the soul of the deceased enters the paradise of the realm of Osiris. Should the individual's heart fail the test, a monster called the Eater stands ready to devour his soul. Boy, am I thankful we aren't under that covenant. Scholars naturally wonder to what degree the Egyptian concept of Ma'at influenced Israelite thinking on justice and order in society. Specifically, the feminine personification of wisdom in Proverbs 8 has been suggested to have been derived from the Egyptian goddess Ma'at. It is, of course, important to realize that Israel did not exist in isolation. To the contrary, the Bible speaks a great deal about the Egyptian influences on Israel. The sojourn in Egypt was obviously a time when Israel would have been exposed to Egyptian culture and religion, and Solomon's era was also a period of close cultural exchange between these two societies. Nevertheless, it is difficult to posit a direct line of influence from Egypt to Israel on the subjects of order, justice, or Ma'at. Both Israel and Egypt understood that justice and harmony are necessary for life to function smoothly. But wisdom, in Proverbs 8, is a personification, not a goddess. She exemplifies the order and justice God has built into creation. Lady Wisdom appears elsewhere in Proverbs. For example, in 1:20 through 33, she calls upon people to heed her teachings and so to find life. The embodiment of wisdom as a lady who invites people to follow her is a distinctively Israelite idea with no analogy in Egyptian teaching. I hear a lot of skeptics trying to relate why the Israelites said things they said or believed things they did or wrote things the way they wrote things because it had to do with culture. So, because something was in culture, naturally, the Israelites must have derived it from culture. But let's think that one through. Just because something existed doesn't mean that the Israelites derived from that. And if they did, they weren't worshiping wisdom. Just because something existed doesn't mean that's where the Israelites got their ideas, where they got their writings, where they got their ideas. That's a fallacy to say that because something is, everything else came from that. That's a fallacy. That's actually a fallacy. That's actually a fallacy called the illicit minor. That's when you say Egypt had a goddess of truth, order, justice, and harmony. Israel personified wisdom. Therefore, Israel derived their personification from a goddess. That doesn't make any sense. That doesn't follow logically. I'm actually in the middle of reading a fantastic book called Come Let Us Reason by Norm Geisler. It's more like a work-through book, so it's taken me a minute. This is also a faulty analogy, except this because of these similarities, even if there are very few similarities. So, just because there's a little bit of similarity in the two personifications doesn't mean that the Israelites got their idea from the goddess Ma'at. And as always, thank you so much for being here today. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe right there and click the bell if you want some notifications for when there's new videos. And if you would, hit that like button for me as well. And I will see you next time. Maranatha!
So let His love shine through in everything we do. It's all for love.